We'd like to welcome you back to Holy Living with Huff and Sal. I'm Huff.
I'm Sal.
She's Sal. Glad we established that. So here we are another week, and this finishes up April, which we kind of made like a finance month because, you know, taxes. Everybody loves tax season, right? The tax season is just absolutely wonderful. Sal's like, It's a really tough season if you owe money, right? But anyway, so I saved this one for last because it's kind of unique in that we're actually, it's actually a video about how to go about seeking out if you're looking to purchase a home. Now we've already talked about finances, right? As far as from a personal perspective, we shared our story. We had Brother Brent on, who's like a personal coach. We talked with him. And so today's video is actually a real estate agent that I've known for years. Now, I got to preface everything with saying this. Some may question why I used this person, right? First off, he's a friend, good Christian man, right? And he is JT, his real name is John Turner, I call him JT. A lot of folks who love him call him JT, just me. But he has never shown anything but the utmost integrity. Just from day one that I met this young man, he stood out to me. Not only that, he's very plugged in to his community. Worked the Big Brother program and all, was a mentor. Him and a group of friends also have a special program that they do to give scholarships and stuff to black youth who want to go to college and stuff like that. So he's an amazing individual to start off with. Secondly is I also thought that if we were going to talk about home ownership and how to look for a home, I wanted to use, since we know a lot of real estate agents in our area, right, it'd be best to go outside of our area. So JT is about 60 miles away. He serves an area way different than the one we live in. So that way, because otherwise, how do you choose? We know so many, right? Yeah. So it would have been hard to, why did you choose this one over this one, right? And so to make it just easier so I didn't, have any hurt feelings, we chose a real estate agent that was completely disconnected from the area which we live in. Now, I know that people watch these videos that are not in our area, right? But the information that he's giving is usable no matter where you're at, right? And so JT is really big into helping people find the home that fits them, that fits their budget, but also the community they want to be in. He helps them look just outside of the physical structure of the house, but to look at all those aspects. And he is all about getting someone into a place that's right for them, not just trying to sell the most expensive thing so he gets the biggest commission. That's not what he's about. And so I'm really excited for you to just listen to the interview that I did with John Turner. He's just a fabulous guy. But a home is the largest purchase you'll ever make. Secondly, is there's some people that maybe think that, I've met people that didn't think they could ever own a home. I've met people that think maybe even some aspects like they had not had a very good financial life, and some almost as if they don't even deserve to own a home. And that's just very sad. Now, the first step always in home ownership and looking for a home is to get pre-qualified by a lender, right? So unfortunately, I was not able to pull that off of being able to interview an actual lender for that. But I do know some folks, and so if you, if you're having problems trying to find, someone to talk to as far as being pre-qualified, our email address will be in the description. Shoot me an email, and I will gladly hook you up with some names. Plus, there's some big major names out there, that are really good about helping people get into their first home. Right? We had a very good success with our son, helping him get into his first home with this particular finance company. So I won't say it on the video, but I would gladly give you that information. So our prayer today is that if you are looking to purchase a house, or you know someone who is, and you just want some really good tips on how to choose a real estate agent and why why having a real estate agent is a good idea. Because when you think of real estate, you think about the people who are selling the home, but actually a purchasing agent. I learned some things about that.
I did
right?
too.
But having a purchasing agent that works to help the buyer, right? Because the one who's selling the home, the one who lists the home for sale, well, they're kind of working for the seller, right? Their idea is to get the most bang for the buck and most money out of the house they can. But when you, as a buyer, get with an agent who works on your behalf, right? It's a really good thing. And so we'll leave all the tips for that into the video that in the discussion in the interview that we had with John. So we pray that this blesses you somehow, and that you learn something from it. And even if you maybe are already in a home, what about somebody you may know? Because the whole idea, listen, God saves us not just so that we're saved and that's the end of the story,
That's
right?
That's right.
But God saves us so that we may also go out and reach others, right? We are to make disciples. We are to reach all nations, right? And so it's not just about you having the information for you,
Right.
but maybe you know someone, or maybe just listen to the interview and take in the information. And then maybe one day you'll be having a conversation around the water cooler at work, and somebody will mention, man, I've been thinking about buying a house. I just don't even know how to get started. And you like, you know what? Let me tell you something. I learned some things about this. Let me give you a few tips, right? And so that's the whole idea behind this. By the way, we're excited about some videos we got coming up also for next month. One, I almost thought about putting 2 videos out this week, but I'm like, no, I'm going to hold off because we want to get into the topic next week about the term offensive that we hear all the time, right? That's offensive. Why is that term a big deal, right? And is it the right term to be using? That's going to be next week's video. So we love you guys. Hope you enjoyed this interview I had with one of the coolest cats and nicest and most utmost people that you will ever meet in your life, Mr. John Turner. All right. See you guys.
Bye.
Hey, folks, we'd like to welcome you to Holy Living with Huff and Sal. Happens to be just Huff at the moment. And Sal had to take care of something at the optometrist. So today we've got a guest that we've had scheduled. I'm really excited about him. I've known him for quite a few years now. We're actually both involved in the HVAC business as well. It's kind of how we met. Every now and then, people that you meet in life, they something about them stands out to you. And from the moment I met this young man, he stood out to me. And so I call him JT. His real name is John Turner. And JT is first off, he's an intelligent, wonderful human being, family man, and there's so much about him. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to, in a minute, ask him to introduce himself. But so April is finance month. We're talking about finances. And today we're going to talk about something specific in the way of home ownership. And so JT is going to share with us the benefits of home ownership, and then how to go about. A lot of people have never bought a home, JT. They don't even know what to do. And so I've asked John, because he's involved in this part of the business. And so as you've already seen previous videos, we've had folks on about personal finances, as well as also lenders. And so now we're getting to the point of, okay, man, God has blessed us, and we're going to go for broke here, right? And so why should I buy a home? And then if I decide to buy a home, how do I even go about it and get started? And now I'm actually going to turn this over to JT. He's going to introduce himself, talk a little bit, just to give you just kind of understanding who he is as a person, and then he's going to lay out for us the steps that you would go about actually being able to purchase your first home. Again, this is after the lending has happened. So JT, take it away.
My man, I appreciate that kind of introduction. And so you're right. We have known each other for a number of years now, and kind of going back to, it might have been 2008, 2009, maybe we first met working in HVAC. And so it was interesting because when you first meet somebody, right, sometimes you just have like a natural connection to them, and you kind of feel just an energy about a person, right? And that's kind of what I felt towards you. And then kind of getting to know you, I realized kind of what that energy and what that was that I was feeling. Going to find out you're a pastor, right? And you're very involved in the church. You're heavily involved in the church, and we both have the same beliefs, right? In God and a higher power, and just really kind of being here to be a vessel to support other people. And so, kind of getting to know each other. One of the things that I share with you that I enjoy doing, that I like to do, is kind of to give back to my community. And you began kind of asking me some questions about, JT, like what do you do, right? Like what do you do within the community? And for several years now, since 2010, my friend and I, we co-founded a book award called Motivating Others to Vertically Excel. And so the purpose of that book award is to allow minorities who want to attend a historically Black college or university to provide them with financial support, but not only financial support, but also trying to kind of help them, provide them with like internships and mentorships and whatever the goals in life that they want to achieve. We try to provide that guidance for them as they go through, their historically Black college of choice, right? So that's some of the things that you and I talked about to kind of help build our connection to some of the things that I do and I enjoy doing within the community, just to really get to give back, right? And so that's a little bit about me. And I've been in real estate since 2017, licensed in the state of Virginia as well as Maryland. And a part of me going into real estate was similar to HVAC, is that it's kind of a chance to give back in a space, in an area that a lot of people don't necessarily think about as a career, right? A goal of mine is to help people realize kind of there's possibilities out there aside from doctors, lawyers, things like that, teachers. And while those professions are necessary and are needed, there's other things that are obtainable, like heating and air conditioning, whether you want to be an electrician or a hairdresser, things that such as the trade. So that's what brings me here today.
Awesome. I'm excited. So you got a presentation for us today, right? That's going to help us kind of walk us through. And so what I'm going to do, JT, I'm going to share. I'm going to set it up so you can share your screen. I'm going to make you the host.
Give me 1 second, Huff. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Take your time. Gives me a chance to drink some coffee.
All right.
If I have a vice, that's it. Coffee. Oof.
Coffee is it, huh?
Yeah.
Well, I started in the mornings. I'll drink some tea, right? Some caffeinated tea. That's
Well, I cut out all sugar and carbs. I've been sugar and carb free for 7 months. So I had to have something. So I drink black coffee. That's it. There's no sugar, no cream, no nothing.
Oh, so you said no carbs either, huh?
Yeah, I'm down 89 pounds in 7 months.
You know what's funny? It's funny. I'm looking at you, and before we're getting ready to get started, I'm like, you look good. You look really good.
I been working at it. I still got a ways to go. I was 4 ounces short this morning of hitting my 90-pound goal. And then, so 90 is one step. And then when I get to 120, hopefully I'll tailor off there. But yeah, just trying to kind of get healthy. My wife was diagnosed with cancer 3 years ago.
Okay.
She got very healthy. She actually did it naturally. She, instead of doing chemo, she went through a program called Protocell.
Okay.
Building up her own immune system to fight the cancer. And so 3 years now she's been declared cancer free.
Wow.
And so she encouraged, I was just so encouraged watching her that I'm like, I got to get healthy. I got an autoimmune disease that's plagued me for several years. And so the best way to fight that is with an anti-inflammatory diet. But I ended up going all out, no sugar, no carbs. And man, I'll tell you one thing, I feel better at 50 than I did at 25.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Good for you. I do have the presentation up. If you're ready.
Yeah. Yep. You should be able to hit share your screen.
Okay. And if you have questions along the way, then please feel free to kind of slow me down or stop me.
Yep, absolutely. Sweet.
Okay. So this presentation and going through this is really to kind of support support you in kind of selecting the right realtor and finding your home. And the way that I kind of highlight that is really kind of hitting the bullseye in terms of finding the right home for you. And so there's a distinction between a real estate agent and a realtor. A lot of people don't necessarily realize that what that distinction is. Let me go ahead and go back. I'm trying to minimize. Okay. Yeah. So there's a distinction between a real estate agent and a realtor. So a real estate agent is somebody who is someone who's licensed, right? Someone who is licensed, someone who has gone through the classes, and someone who can buy or sell commercial property or residential property. But a realtor is someone who is also licensed with the National Association of Realtors. And so the National Association of Realtors holds the realtors to a higher ethical standard, and they need to be licensed and pass classes and kind of continue to maintain a certain status ethically and morally at the national level, at the state level, and at the local level. So a realtor that we're held to higher standards than real estate agents, and we're consistently and constantly taking classes and continuing our education in order to serve our clients at the highest level, ethically and respectfully.
So that's that little logo, right? You see people, it's got that realtor logo. That's what that means then.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So when you see somebody with that little logo, that means they're a realtor.
Yeah, I always wondered what that was. I didn't understand that, like, why some people had it, some people didn't, but yet they were a real estate agent. I didn't get that. That's awesome.
Yep, that's right. Yep. So that's that'll be the distinction between an agent and a realtor. So when you're searching, you want to make sure that you ask that question: are you a real estate agent or are you a realtor? And so they should absolutely know what those distinctions are if they're a realtor.
Awesome.
So in real estate, sometimes you'll hear a few different terms, a few different phrases. One being a home appraiser. What is a home appraiser, right? A home appraiser is someone who determines the value of the home that you submitted an offer on. So say for instance, you go out, you find a home that you really like, you submit an offer that gets accepted, and that offer, for example, is $250,000. A home appraiser will go out and ensure that the home that you submitted an offer that was accepted on is actually worth $250,000. So for instance, that home appraiser could go out and say, you know what, after looking at this home and kind of doing the comps within the neighborhood, this home actually looks like it might be worth a little bit closer to $230,000. So what that means is that your lender will not provide you with a loan amount more than what that home is now appraised for. So that home is now appraised for $230,000. And so now that's actually going to be the price point in which your lender will be able to lend you the loan amount for.
And so that's based on the house, but you said comps, right? So can you talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, so great question, Huff. So comps is comparables, right? So those comparables would be with homes that are very similar in that neighborhood in which you're looking to purchase. So a fair comp would be a 3-bedroom townhome, in zip code 22312, and another 3-bedroom townhome, maybe about a mile down the road within that same zip code. So comparable, it couldn't be a 3-bedroom townhome with a 5-bedroom single-family home on that same street. That wouldn't be a comparable because they're two different types of homes. So that's kind of what a comparable would be similar homes within the same neighborhood.
Awesome.
Yeah. So another term is a property manager. So typically when you have investors who have multiple properties, they'll bring in a property manager, which is someone who We'll kind of look for people to rent out that space, that home. We'll provide maintenance on it. We'll run background checks. We'll collect monthly rental checks, draft up rental agreements and contracts, things of that nature. That's what a property manager will do, with an investor. They'll manage that particular space and ensure that the people who are coming into it are qualified. They run background checks on, and if anything does go awry, then they can come in and kind of take care of it. Right. So a real estate counselor, is someone who is able to provide guidance within the real estate process. And in order to be considered a real estate counselor, you have to have at least 10 years of real estate experience. And that experience doesn't necessarily have to be as a real estate agent, but it can be someone who is maybe in real estate law, someone who might be a developer, something of that nature, who's been within the real estate sphere, and does have at least 10 years of experience, and it works closely with the National Association of Realtors.
Awesome.
A real estate broker. A real estate broker is someone who is a realtor, but they've also continued to have a continued education. They continue their education in order to earn their brokerage license, and now they can hire other real estate agents or realtors to come and work with and for them. And so now they have their own real estate brokerage, and that's what a real estate broker would be.
Great.
So who do realtors represent, right? So how does this whole process work? You know what I mean? So sometimes I get this question, well, the seller, right? What's the difference between the seller's agent and then the buyer's agent? And do I even need an agent, right? Like, why do I need somebody to represent me? Okay. And so that's what we'll talk about a little bit on this slide. And so on this slide here, you have a seller's agent, which is also known as a listing agent. And so that seller's agent / listing agent, what they'll do, they get hired by the individual or the couple who might be selling their home because they're relocating to another area or another state. And so that seller's agent will take pictures of that home, get that home prepared along with the sellers in order to present it to you guys, being the buyers, right? And so along with that, you have what's called a cooperating agent. And so cooperating agent and a designated agent, that would be the seller agent as well as the buyer's agent. They both work for the same and with the same brokerage. Okay, so they both work for the same brokerage. An example of the brokerage that I work for is eXp Realty. Another would be a Keller Williams Realty or a Caldwell Banker. These are brokerages, right? So if the seller's agent and the buyer's agent both work for the same brokerage, then that would be considered a cooperating agent. Okay. On the buying side, what a presumed buyer's agent is someone who you work with as someone who's interested in buying a home, but there hasn't been any paperwork that's been completed or signed off on stating that, hey, we've decided to hire, John Turner for this particular, to be our specific buyer's agent. So proper paperwork needs to be signed off on before you can be officially someone's agent.
Gotcha. And so a presumed buyer's agent, so that means you kind of talking to an agent, but you haven't really kind of nailed it down yet.
That's exactly right. It's just really, you're just in conversations with someone. So you're just talking to somebody saying, hey, I like this house. Can you send me something on 123 Main Street? But there hasn't been any official paperwork definitively signed.
Good. But there's the benefits to actually, even as the buyer, right? Because a lot of times we think of real estate, you think of the people selling the home.
Mm-hmm.
There are some big benefits to the buyer, who's someone who's looking for a home, actually being with an agent. And I think you're going to cover that, right? I'm assuming you're going to get into that.
I will, but I'll get into it now, right? That's a great question. I mean, sometimes, people say, well, hey, look, well, I can, as a buyer, I can go ahead and I can do this by myself, right? I can go ahead and I can find a house. What do I need an agent for? Well, one, on the buying side, you don't pay an agent at all, right? The way that an agent gets paid or realtor gets paid is through on the selling side. Okay. So that listing agent, as well as that homeowner who's selling their property, they're the ones who are deciding, okay, we are going to pay this percentage to the seller agent as well as the buyer agent. So now if you go in there as a homeowner, or I'm sorry, not as a homeowner, but if you go in there representing yourself, then now, it's in that listing agent's best interest. They collect all the commissions, right? Now they collect all the commissions, but they're really working on behalf of the seller. They just want to sell you the property. They don't want to do what's in your best interest, whether that be like a home inspection, whether that be, suggesting maybe you waive an appraisal, or even negotiating, right? Negotiating the best price point for that particular home. Their best interest is the seller. It's not you as in the buyer. So that's why you always want to have representation so that you have an agent that understands like the contracts and things like that.
Yeah, so this buyer's agent is going to work on my behalf buying the house, because that other guy, it's in his best interest to get rid of the house, right, to sell it. And I need somebody working on my behalf. And I will tell you that my very first house, we had a buying agent. And I will tell you, they actually saved us from a bad ordeal on a house, that once they realized some things that had happened to the house, and they kind of had an inside scoop that we didn't have, just because they knew, just because of watching what happened. There was an issue with the title of the house and some other things. And once the buyer agent found out what was going on, and dug in deeper, they're like, this could be really held up, and this could actually take you longer to get in the house because they're having issues with this title. And because it was just, I think it was, I can't remember. It's been so long ago, JT, I don't remember the exact situation. I just remember the buying agent telling us that to be able to go to closing on this house was going to take a considerable amount of time, because they had some issues now with the title, because it had belonged to multiple family members, right? And we needed a house now.
Okay. Yeah.
We were moving. We needed to get into something fairly quickly. I didn't want to rent and then do all that. If I was we were moving from back down from Reston, Virginia, back up here to West Virginia. And so we needed to find something that was in our price point, but we needed to be able to go to closing relatively quickly. And so they saved us kind of from that situation that ended up taking months and months. Later we found out. So they were working on our behalf, right? And helped us find something in our range. And to this day, we love, her name was Susie. I'll never forget it. And we see her occasionally. And to this day, I have the highest, utmost respect for her, because she actually helped us so much.
And that's something we'll talk about too, Huff, is that like why you want an agent that has like relationships, right? Relationships within that community, relationships within in the real estate space, because it sounds like they connected you with somebody a really good lawyer in the title space that made sure that you guys were taken care of and weren't going to get taken advantage of, and find out all of these bad things after the fact, right? So it sounds like, it does sound like Susie, she definitely took care of you guys.
Yeah, and because she knew what to put in the contract, we had it so that if something happened and we couldn't go to closing within a certain amount of time, that we were now no longer bound to that. I mean, had she not done all of those things for us, we would have really been in a bad spot. And so, just phenomenal how she took care of us.
Awesome. And so, Huff, let me ask you this: and when you connected, because we're talking about how to choose a realtor, when you connected with Susie, how did you find her?
Actually, a friend referred us.
Yep. Okay. And so that is, and then what did you do after that friend referred you to Susie? How did you? What do you remember what that process was like?
Yeah, so once we found out about her and they gave us her phone number, we just called her up and said, hey, here's the deal. We're moving up here. Things are moving faster than we originally thought. We had been looking on our own, right? Of course, back then there wasn't Zillow and all that stuff. And I can remember going to real estate offices and they'd have pictures posted in the windows. I don't even know if they still do that anymore. I had all these listings, right, posted in the window. We would go look and we would ask people, and they're just, gosh, the internet was not a thing at that time, and so we had kind of had limited means, and we were just trying to contact everybody we could to see if they knew for a house for sale or rent to own or something. We wanted to own, right? We didn't want to really didn't want to rent, but if there was a rent to own option that we could find or something, but we were just looking, and we had a certain amount down payment we had, so we kind of knew what our price range was, and we had already contacted a lender, and we just ran out of options. And someone gave us her name and said, "Hey, this lady helped me," and she was a Remax agent, if I remember correctly. And so we called her, and she said, "Sure, I'd like to meet with you." So we set up an appointment, went in her office, and she asked us all the questions, right? So she could kind of frame in mind. And she said, "Well, give me a day or two to kind of put together a list of things that meet, what you need." And it was great, but it started off with just a recommendation from a friend, and we made the call, and we sat down with her after that. And she obviously, when we sat down with her, we were impressed because the questions she asked that we didn't know that we needed to answer, if you know what I mean. They know things. You guys know things. You don't think to ask, and
Yep.
so I was just like, we walked away from there going, man, we sure am glad we did this, because she asked questions that we didn't even know we should have the answers to.
Yep.
And it was great. But it all started with that phone call and then a sit down with her.
Yep. And that sounds, it sounds like Susie has a perfect process, right? Where one, you are recommended through family and friends, and that's how a lot of transactions takes place, right? But it sounds like there was an interview period as well, where you guys had a chance to kind of to discuss what your goals were, right? Like what your goals are, what you guys are looking to do, and how she can kind of support you in achieving those goals and getting there, right? And understanding kind of, well, what are your expectations of me as your realtor? That is one question that I always ask, right? Because you don't want to kind of walk into a situation where you're assuming that you're going to be the agent, right? You want to understand and kind of lay things out up front to make sure that everybody's on the same page and everybody has like the same understanding. And it sounds like in your process, that's exactly what happened, right? Like you guys kind of talked about what you needed to do, how you needed to do it, what you were looking for, what was important to you. And so that these things are critical in terms of, interviewing your realtor, right? And then also, like, I think it's also important. You can also call your neighborhood real estate brokerages. As Huff was saying, there was a time when there were pictures, right, on the front of those brokerages. But now you can't go on Zillow. Now you can go on Google. You can do searches online, which makes life a little bit easier now in terms of trying to find a realtor opposed to going to a brokerage yourself.
Yeah. The internet's changed a lot of things.
Internet has changed things just a little bit. So, so three questions that I suggest in asking when interviewing a potential realtor. Kind of, what does their home buying process look like, right? Sometimes people feel as if the home buying process can be overwhelming and daunting. It's good to understand what the process looks like and what that realtor's process is, and walk you through it, right? So you understand what you're getting yourself into, and that along the way, they're communicating each and every step so that you understand what's going to be next or what could possibly be next, right? So understanding their home buying process. Another question is, who do they work with locally that can and support them in that process, right? Like we talked about with Huff in terms of having somebody who is there on the title side, right? Or it could be somebody on the home inspection side. Do they have somebody for the home inspection that they trust and that they can recommend? Or even if there might be certain repairs, are there contractors that they work with? So it's important, or even lenders, right? Who do you work with in terms of on the lending side? So it's important for that realtor to have relationships that they can support you along the way throughout the process. And then thirdly, like we talked about when we first opened up, are they affiliated with the National Association of Realtors? Are they a realtor, or are they a real estate agent? So those are three possible questions that you can ask when interviewing a potential realtor.
I think sometimes, to a lot of people, maybe buying a house seems like a normal thing, JT. I mean, certainly you see it happen all the time. But the first time I bought a house, I mean, it was not only the first time,
Mhm.
but have you ever thought about someone who never seen a home buying process ever happen?
Mhm.
So, case in point, the the house I grew up in, I never watched my mom and dad buy that house, never saw the process. I'll tell you why. The land that the house was on, my dad traded a car to my grandfather for this piece of land. And then he put a mobile home on it. We lived in that, and then my dad built the house. So I had never ever heard of these things before. Even though I grew up in a home, I had never seen the process happen.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
So my first house, I was a 24-year-old boy from West Virginia, never even seen it,
Mhm.
never heard of this process before. And it could be scary.
Yep.
I mean, I was scared to death. I was given what money? Listen, I'd saved up that money for down payment. That's all I had.
Yep.
And I'm like, if this don't go right, I'm out. So that was the kind of the purpose for even doing this is like I'm sure there's some old boy from West Virginia out here like me somewhere. It's like never seen this happen before.
But you know what? It's people like that I talk to people like that every day, right? Every day where it's just like, I can't do it, I can't afford it. It's just I'm not ready to take all of this on. And really it's just starting with the first step, right? And the first step is to connect with a lender, right? And that lender is like it's going to ask for three things, a few things from you, right? Maybe W-2s, pay stubs, and tax statements, and the possibilities that might come from that. Whether that lender say, "Oh, well, you qualify for down payment assistance, or for closing cost assistance, or for this program, or for that program," and so it's really just about the first step and just taking it, right? It's kind of that having that faith, and taking the first step. That's what it's about.
Yep.
In talking about finding a good realtor after kind of taking that faith, that step of faith, is that you're looking for somebody, of course, right, that has high ethical and moral standards, right? Someone who's honest, who will disclose information, who you feel as if who's going to act in the best interest of you, who's not trying to steer you towards a particular community or a particular home, but who's listening, right? Someone who's listening to what your needs are, and who's going to put you first, right? And the biggest thing for me, right? The biggest thing for me as a realtor is communication, right? It boils down to communication, and even if it's something that I don't necessarily want to hear, I ask that my clients share that with me, and I always share with my clients like, all right, when we go to start seeing homes, right? We're going to go into the home. You guys are going to check it out, and then once we leave, what's likely going to happen is you guys are going to get in your car, right? You're going to get in your car. You're going to put on your seatbelts. You're going to stop, take a deep breath, look at each other. And even in that moment, if it's John's an idiot, I ask that you communicate that to me, right? And the same thing with every realtor, because these things are important, because if we're missing the mark, it's important to have that communication. So that's what a good realtor is: someone who's knowledgeable, someone who's easy to talk to, someone who you feel like you can have a conversation with, and who's putting you first.
Absolutely.
So this is a little bit about what we were talking about earlier, buying with a realtor and buying without a realtor. Again, the way that realtors get paid, it's when, it's when a seller works with that listing agent, right? Works with that listing agent. They determine and decide what those commissions will be, and split amongst between the buying side, the selling side, as well as the buying side. And so at that point, a buying agent is going to work on your behalf to negotiate and offer resources that lowers your risk kind of going into that transaction, opposed to working directly with the seller and the listing agent who's working specifically on that seller's behalf.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes so much sense. I'm glad I did it, but I didn't even know to do it. When I just went to we couldn't find the house, so I got Susie's name. But now looking back, I mean, God really blessed us and took care of us. In spite of the fact that we were ignorant of the whole process, but having that agent for us was just phenomenal.
100%. Yeah, I mean, having an agent. One, you weren't paying that agent, right? You're not paying that agent at all. But it's somebody who you can lean on, someone that you should be able to trust. In terms of market data and market statistics, providing that context and that information, right? So it can be a realtor. A realtor really is a blessing, right? Because they're protecting you. They understand the contracts, they understand the negotiating aspect, they understand the market. So it's important to really to partner with someone. And it's a benefit, it's a blessing to work with an agent, because again, there's no fees, there's no additional fees to you, but they have your best interest along the way, every step of the way.
Yeah, I love that. You don't pay them, right? Because they get paid out of the seller, right?
Yes.
Out of the proceeds from that home being sold. So, I mean, it's kind of like almost, it's really not smart not to do this because you're not paying for anything.
Right. And so one of the things that I'm seeing like more often nowadays is that sometimes people are leaning on like Redfin or Zillow to open the doors for them, right? Because there's I guess there's less of a transaction that way. But typically kind of working with Redfin and Zillow, they're really just opening the door for you. They're not finding out what's important to you, kind of what your concerns are, and kind of what you're really what your goals are. They're really just there to open that door and then go on about their business, right? You want to make sure that you have a relationship with your agent. That matters. Having that relationship absolutely matters.
Isn't that an important thing? I mean, all things, not just in real estate, John, but
come on, Huff. Come on.
I'm gonna preach here in a minute.
Come on, Pastor. Come on, Pastor.
Relationships, we've gotten so digitized, right?
Yeah.
Because I can go on and look. It's almost like I don't want to be bothered by having to talk to someone.
Yes.
The thing is that relationship, and the fact that these folks, that's what their business is. That's what you're a real estate. It's what you do, and you understand things so much better than I do. And to get to know me and to understand what I'm really about, what it is we're really looking for, you can't do that on Zillow. You can't do that. And listen, it's not that I'm against those sites. It's nice to be able to browse and look and see what's around. But man, relationships is something that we're missing. I mean, we're missing it in every aspect of life now in this world that we live in. And it's just, we're missing it. We're missing out. We're missing out on so much by not building those relationships.
Yeah, 100%. And again, like we talk about, you talk about church, we talk about community, we're talking about kind of connecting with people, right? To just kind of create a better experience, one, right, on earth, right? And a better experience, maybe for the next life, right? When we transition. And so having these relationships here, who knows what that might turn into, right? What that might develop into, right? It could turn. I've had clients who I work with who end up becoming members of the church that I attend, right? Who become a part of the men's ministry. And so it's just kind of like, who knows really kind of what that experience might bring when you work with a realtor or anybody, right? And like you said, everything has become so digitized that relationships are now becoming less and less that I'm seeing.
Yeah, and God made us relational beings. When God says that we are made in His image, God is a spirit. So what is it about God that we bear His image with? And the fact is, God made us rational beings, right? He gave us a soul that will live in eternity somewhere, but He also made us relational. That's why He looked at man and said, man would not be good for him to be alone. So He made him a helper, right? It's because we're relational. He made us that way. We desire relationships. And we try to reject that design and still do business, so to speak. We're just missing it,
And even look now, Huff. We know each other not through real estate, bro.
Yeah.
we know each other. We don't know each other through real estate, right? We didn't, but look kind of what, many years later, right? Here we are, right? Yeah. Here we are. And so we got an opportunity to have a conversation not only about real estate, but also about our faith, right? So it's all about the little things.
Oh, absolutely, man. Absolutely.
So I know that you guys kind of went through, what the pre-approval looks like, and kind of having a conversation with your lender. And so a pre-approval is something that will help determine your affordability. And so that is the pre-approval process. That is the first step. That is the first step in the process to ensure, say, okay, this is what we can afford, and then kind of begin figuring out what type of home you want to move forward.
Yeah, and that's an important thing too. Man, there was a time in my life, JT, be quite honest with you, where I went from that first small house, right, and then I ended up building a house. And honestly, I I built right up to the edge, right, of what I could afford.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the pre-approval process and understanding what you can really afford is an important part, right? I kind of strapped myself a little bit in that house, and it was difficult living for a while. And so I that's always like to warn people is like, make sure that you understand what it is that you can really afford and think the process through, so that when you do go shopping for this house and you do sit down with that buying agent to really explain it that way, that you can find something that meets your needs, but also that you can sustain. Right. That you don't become so house rich you can't afford to buy dinner or pay for dinner in it. You know what I mean?
Right, 100%. And sometimes, like when I have people come to me and they ask me, or they say that, hey, we're looking for a lease, we're looking to rent. I ask the question, if you can buy for at the same price in which you rent, would you?
Yeah.
And so the answer 95% of the time is yes. And that starts with this pre-approval process. And so again, to your point, where it's not necessarily, okay, well, now this individual is not strapping, they're not strapped, right? Or cash poor, or house poor rather. Now they might be able to find themselves into a situation where, what they're now paying for their mortgage is what they possibly were paying in their rent, or sometimes even less, right? Because who knows, right? It depends upon, that qualifying process with your lender, or even specific programs that could be available in your area, that your lender has access to. So sometimes you just don't know. And, so sometimes it's just kind of worth it to kind of just take that leap of faith again, like we talked about.
Well, the likelihood, if you're paying rent somewhere, you're probably paying someone's mortgage, right?
You are paying someone's mortgage,
Well,
and
so
then some. You're not just paying the mortgage up. You're paying their mortgage and then some, because they're not just going to charge you what it costs for them to live there. They're going to make a few dollars off of that, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So, but yeah, so so the pre-approval process, that is kind of the first step in the home buying process.
Awesome.
So how to find kind of the right home. So sometimes, I'm like, well, we don't know where to start. We don't know where to begin. And so the way that I break things down is that we talked about at the beginning is the bullseye. And the bullseye really, it boils down to three things. It boils down to price, right, which is your pre-approval, and what you feel like you can afford monthly. Location, where would you like to live? Where would you like to find your home? And then type of home, whether that be a townhome, whether that be a single family home, whether that be a condo, whether that be a 2-bed, right, or a 3-bed or a 5-bedroom, depending upon what you're looking for. And that's how we can kind of craft the conversation in terms of narrowing down where you may or may not want to live.
Awesome. I love that you got to hear schools and crime and property, all that, and all that's important. And I think that, that's again, another benefit of having a buyer agent, so they can help you look for that information, because they have it, they have it at their fingertips, right? You guys have that information. So it's important to know that when you're looking for a place, what is the crime rate in that area? Is it an area that I really want to put roots in?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And sometimes these are things that home buyers don't necessarily even consider at the time, and it's about having that conversation, right? Just saying, encouraging them maybe to look online at certain statistics, right? Whether that be for the school systems, or whether that be for crime rates, or anything like that, or even things that are to come in that neighborhood, right? It could be an up and coming community or development, or sometimes there could be certain things that they're taking away from that community. It could be a shopping center that someone likes, and that shopping center could be slated to shut down the following year, right? So it's important to have someone who understands the neighborhood and some of the transitions that might be taking place in the neighborhood in advance, because if you're buying for one specific reason and that reason might be going away in a year, well, then how are you going to feel about that community, a year from that time period?
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome.
So one thing home buyers should do to get a feel for a neighborhood or a home of interest, maybe just taking a drive around that particular neighborhood or that area and see kind of how you feel about that neighborhood in the morning, maybe in the afternoon, or even in the evening. Are there people outside? Are the neighbors friendly? These are things to consider. Are they willing to have a conversation with you? Are there kids playing? So these are some things that can be done to kind of get a feel for a neighborhood.
Yeah, awesome.
So there are different types of sales. What we've been discussing is your more traditional standard type of sale. Short sales are anything but short. A short sale, you can go ahead and you can submit an offer. We're getting ready to go into the spring, right? We're going into the spring season and shorts and t-shirts. And you can wait to the fall comes and the winter comes, and now it's you got your hat, gloves, coat, and scarf on, and then you finally get a response on what's considered a short sale, and that bank can come back and tell you very simply the answer is no. So now essentially you've waited for a complete year for this short sale, which is traditionally the price point is a little bit less, for a response to come back that's a no, right? So short sales can be risky, and it's important to understand kind of what you might be looking at in a short sale. Real estate owned, that is a bank owned home. And then you also have a FSBO, which is also a for sale by owner, which is not listed with a realtor. So this is a home that is listed by an owner who does not want to pay a listing agent or a realtor to put their house on the market. So again, something to consider when you're looking at for sales by owner is that, again, what's this particular owner trying to do? They're trying to save money, right? So if they're trying to save money, kind of are they going to cut corners in this transaction? Right. Because they're trying to save money. So it's just something to consider, that they're very, very interested in their own best interest at heart when working with for sale by owners. So these are some of the things that I caution clients that I work with when looking at for sale by owners. When it comes to an auction homes, you'll see, you might see on the market a home that's way underpriced, right? That's an auction home. You might see a single family home that's 5,000 square feet. It looks great. It looks beautiful, and it might be priced at $200,000. Okay, and the day of the auction, chances are that auction can go up to about $800,000, right? So an auction home will typically sell for a lot more than what it shows on Zillow or Redfin or even on the MLS.
Gotcha.
So making an offer, right? So after you have the pre-approval, after you've had an opportunity to go out and view a home and you found one that you really like, you go ahead and you submit an offer that gets accepted. And when you submit an offer that gets accepted, what's required is something that's called an earnest money deposit. An earnest money deposit would be a small amount that's required up front that isn't taken from your account, but also isn't going to the seller. So it's kind of left just dangling just out there. It's money that's dangling out there is the way that I phrase it, right? And so the purpose of that money is so that way, you kind of get into the transaction, the seller takes their home off the market because you're now under contract, And if you wake up and you know what, you're like, you know what, I really don't want to buy this house anymore. You just can't walk away because now that seller has taken their home off the market. They weren't accepting any other offers, and so now they have access to that earnest money deposit. So it just serves as protection for them, but it also serves for you once you do get to the finish line. That way it gets applied towards your down payment. So that money gets applied to your down payment. So that money just kind of just hangs out there, right, until either you say you decide that you definitively no longer want to move forward in the transaction, or once we get to closing, then that money is applied to your down payment and or cost.
You got to have some skin in the game, right? I mean, you can't have a guy take his house or a gal take their house off the market just because you said so. So got to put some skin in the game.
You got to have some skin. And typically, the earnest money deposit is about 1%. 1% of the purchase price. So it's not a significant amount, but it is something, to your point, that has some skin in the game, just saying that, hey, we're really serious buyers and we want this home.
So I'll tell you a funny story, JT. So when we were moving out of Reston, because I grew up here in West Virginia. When I first got married, we were down in Reston, where my wife was.
Okay.
And then we decided she was pregnant. And we decided that we wanted to raise our children up here back in West Virginia. And that's why we moved. And so it was kind of a quick decision, and we were looking for something. And so that's kind of why we were trying to move pretty quickly, because we wanted to get in the house and everything before we had our son. And so you ever tried to house shop with a pregnant woman?
Actually, I have.
I would assume you probably had the same experience I did, right? So
yeah.
Today it was, I love it. Tomorrow's like, I don't think so, right? So we were back and forth, and we finally found the house. I mean, it was affordable. It really was in our price range. It was in a nice neighborhood. It checked all the boxes, and it was just really nice. And the sellers was willing to help us with the closing costs, right? So they were willing to take the closing costs. So it just really fit the bill, and I just really felt that this God had laid this before us, and my wife was just like, I believe this is the one. I really, really like this, and it checked. I mean, it really did. Susie did such a wonderful job finding us. We had walked many houses, but we finally found it, and I just felt like this is the right one. So this is what happened. I forget what she said I needed to put down, but I put down like half of our down payment down as earnest money.
Okay.
And so the next day, my pregnant wife, hormone change or whatever it is, God bless her, she's like, I don't know. I'm like, well, if they accept that contract, it's too late. She goes, why? I said, because I put half her down payment down on that.
Yeah.
She's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, if they accept the offer, we can't back out or we lose that. And that's half our down payment. She goes, why did you do that? And I'm like, because we needed to make a decision, baby. And so she never let me live that down either. She goes, you did that on purpose. I'm like, baby, we had to make a decision.
We had to make a decision. You had to make a decision. And that's the home that you ended up living in, right?
Sure, it sure was.
Awesome. That's funny.
Oh, when she found out we was going to lose that money if we backed out, thought she was going to kill me.
Those hormones changed again real fast, huh?
Oh, they did. Oh, it was awesome.
That's good stuff. That's good stuff. And so here, I mean, you'll see kind of this is a kind of like a brief, really, version of the residential contract to sale. So that's all that this is. So so contract negotiation tips. One of the things that you'll hear are contingencies, right? We talked about that, whether that be like a home inspection, financing, and appraisal contingency. And so also you have conveyances, and what a conveyance would be essentially like if someone has a pool table down in the basement, right? And you go in and be like, oh, this pool table is beautiful, right? A conveyance could possibly be say, hey, does this pool table convey with the home? So when you purchase the home, that pool table stays. Okay. What's also important to consider when purchasing a home, conveyances all the time, sometimes refrigerators, right? It's an assumption that refrigerators are going to come with the home, right? It's an assumption sometimes that blinds are going to come with the home. It's an assumption that even dishwashers are going to come with the home. These are things that need to be highlighted, or ceiling fans that need to be highlighted, saying that they're gonna come with the home. I've been in some situations where there were some assumptions made, and once the buyer ended up getting into the home, they were pretty upset, to say the least, because some things that they thought were going to be there weren't. And so it's important to make sure that your realtor speaks with you about what is going to convey with the home.
Now,
Yep.
no, I'm sorry. So like all appliances, right? You got to make sure all appliances convey, right?
That's
If
right.
you're wanting those appliances, I should say.
That's right. Yep. And so in the contract, right, this is why it's important to work with the realtor, because again, that realtor is going to understand contracts. So in the contract, that's going to be highlighted, right? So there are going to be certain things that are highlighted to ensure that they do convey with the home.
Now, what about, I see home inspection on there.
Yep.
Can you speak towards your feelings about home inspectors? I've had good and bad experiences, but not everybody's handy, and not everybody knows what they're looking for. Having been in a construction background, I feel like God has, helped me in that area. But what are your thoughts toward home inspections?
Yeah, I mean, my personal belief is that you should always have a home inspection. That's my belief, right? And I encourage my clients to get a home inspection. Now, there are options that you can in the contract negotiation. One, you can have a home inspection to say, hey, either we're going to have this home inspection, but we want you to fix X, Y, and Z if something is wrong, say with the HVAC, right? Right. Say something is wrong with the AC, then we want you guys to replace the AC if it's not functioning properly, or we want you to fix it if it's not functioning properly, or we want you to provide us with whatever the cost is going to be to cover that, right? We want to deduct that from the sales price. Okay. So that's an option for a home inspection. You can also have a home inspection with the option of void only. So you can have a home inspection with an option to negotiate, right? Or you can have a home inspection with an option of void. So if something is wrong, right? So with the electrical or the plumbing or say the roofing, then you can say, okay, we're just going to walk away from this deal, and we don't have to forfeit our earnest money deposit, that EMD that we talked about, as a result. So that's an option in the contract negotiation. So you can negotiate with the home inspection. You can have an option just solely to void, right? We're not asking you to fix anything. We're not asking you to deduct. If something is wrong, we're just going to walk away, right? Or you can say, we don't want to have a home inspection. You can just totally waive the home inspection. But I encourage my buyers with the terms to have a home inspection, even if it is option to void.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I was kind of hoping that's where you would go with it. I've just seen people end up with house issues that they didn't know, structural problems. I've seen foundational issues and things like that, and they are really there to protect you. I mean, sometimes they get a little nitpicky. I'll just be honest. I've seen guys on the HVAC side, like if it doesn't have a certain temperature split across the coil, well, it needed to get checked, and there was nothing wrong. It was just the condition that we're in. But I would rather be safe than sorry. And so I just think that, you're getting ready to make the largest purchase of your life. Make sure that you've used all your tools at your disposal to make sure that is the right place for you.
100%. Yeah, no, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I always think and encourage my clients and my buyers to absolutely request a home inspection and to get a home inspection. So and sometimes sometimes homes are listed as is. And one of the things that I do is when they're listed as is, that means that you can have a home inspection, but they're not going to do anything about it, right? And if you get under contract, you're going to waive your EMD. And so what I encourage my clients to do when a home is listed as is to get a pre-inspection. So before we even submit an offer, as you're going through it and as you're touring and viewing the home, to get a pre-inspection before you even submit your offer, if it's being sold as is. So you still have that home inspection. The seller is still getting what they want in terms of selling it as is, but you still can get an idea of making sure that everything is okay with the home.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I never thought about that from that perspective. Yeah.
A pre-inspection is absolutely something that works. And with a home inspection, Huff, too, let me be clear there. I always kind of set expectations. I like to set expectations in the sense that a home inspection, it will be a million things wrong, right? There will be a million things wrong. That's the home inspector's job. And it's going to be very, very little things, very small things that they're going to state that's wrong. But you want to look for the big rocks, right? Like we talked about, whether it be HVAC, roofing, plumbing, electrical. Those are the things that we want to make sure that we're keeping an eye out on in the home inspection, because that report is going to come back with, hey, you know, this piece of carpet, this thread of carpet was a little bit longer, and that's going to show up on the home inspection, right? Like those are things that will show up and can show up on a home inspection. So
they don't feel like they've done their job if they haven't found a bunch of stuff.
That's it. And on top of that, they're also, it's important to work with the home inspector because they want to cover themselves too, right? So if there is something that they don't document and it does go wrong, then that comes back on that home inspector. So they want to make sure that they get every I, they dot every I and cross every T during their inspections.
Yep, absolutely.
So comps we talked about earlier, which are the comparables within the neighborhood. You want to make sure a two-bedroom townhome, and you compare another two-bedroom townhome within that same community within about a 3-month time span to ensure that, okay, these two homes are comparable, and you know, my house can likely appraise for this, or should likely appraise for that, or this is the offer that I think would be fair because this is what the same house got, you know, a month ago on this same block. Right. So those are the comparables that we talked about a little bit earlier. And concessions. Contract and negotiating a contract, it boils down to two things. To simplify it, it boils down to price and it boils down to terms. Right. The terms are like the home inspection, the financing, the appraisal, those contingencies. And then the price, of course, if somebody has a home listed at $250, right, then okay, well, are you gonna bring it down? Are you looking to kind of bring the offer to $240, or are you willing to kind of go $260 in order to kind of seal that deal? So that's to kind of help make an offer more aggressive, whether it be, okay, hey, this house is listed at $250. We also know that the seller wants to close in about 30 days. So, hey, well, look, I'll offer $260 and I can close in 30 days, right? That's that price. Those are those terms that can make your contract that much more attractive to the seller.
Cool. Yeah.
So here's just some contract negotiation tips, right? The size of your down payment, determine the right amount for your earner's money deposit. Like I said, it's typically about like 1% of that purchase price, but it shows the seller how serious you are about purchasing that home, saying, hey, we really don't plan on walking away at all.
Awesome.
Right. And then from there, your contract is ratified. Do a little dance. So you're good to go. Congrats.
That is awesome.
So all right, I'm gonna stop my share. Any what do you got? Any questions for me, Huh?
That was just enlightening. You know, even though I've already bought 2 houses in my life,
Yeah.
you know, well, one I actually built and one I bought, went through the buying process with Susie. So there was things that I've learned, even though I'm 50 years old and in my 3rd house, you know, that I didn't really think of. And honestly, I wish I had somebody talk to me about these things when I went to go do my first house. Thankfully, God blessed me with meeting Susie and being able to get connected that way. But I've just heard so many people that have had, you know, nightmare stories The whole time you're presenting this and giving us these information, and thinking about having that, that buyer represented and all, just thinking a lot of those situations that I've heard over the years, as pastor, you get to hear all the crazy stories, right? I just thinking how many of those stories would have been avoided, those nightmares could have been avoided just having had this information.
And the way that I like to the way that I see realtors is we're kind of like pilots, right? Where it's just like, we're gonna take off, right? We're gonna take off, and it's our job to kind of help guide the plane and steer it. And there will be some turbulence along the way, but as a pilot, like we want to communicate that turbulence when it's coming, right? Like, hey, we're getting ready to come through some turbulence. Buckle up your seatbelts, and we're gonna get through this, right? And then to kind of smooth that plane on out, and to continue the communication and let our clients know kind of what the next transition is going to be. And then as we kind of continue to kind of come down, we want to make sure that we got a smooth landing for closing. And that's all based upon communication and setting those expectations and having those conversations. So that's kind of how I like to look at the process. There will be some turbulence, it will be a little bit rocky, but it's about kind of communication and understanding what's likely to come next.
Yeah, and so home ownership is not near as far out of the realm as a lot of people think, I grew up in a time, to be honest with you, where, like going to college wasn't something most of us did. It was so far out of our reach, and just being able to get a job so that you could find a place to rent and all that was just, that was just the way people did it. I'm not saying good or bad. I mean, I grew up with some beautiful folks, my office I'm sitting in right now overlooks the church that with the land my grandfather gave to have a church up here, and so I have a rich heritage in that sense, but there was so much of this that's foreign to me because we just didn't grow up looking at life like that.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm sure you understand what I'm saying. There are a lot of neighborhoods where home ownership just didn't ever seem like something that other people did.
Right.
And it's not near as far. And even, when we talk about the lending, lenders, even if you don't qualify now, they'll tell you what to work on.
That's right.
And help you get to that place.
That's right.
I think it's such a win. Home ownership is such a win for folks because it's just, I don't know. There's something about having a home that is yours, and you want to fix it up. You want to make it look good. You want to keep it nice, and I mean, it's just there's a pride factor. Pride's not always a bad thing. I know pride comes before the fall, but that's in a sense of us thinking that we're better than.
Yep.
That's not what this is about. This is about being thankful for something God has blessed you with.
Yes. Yeah.
And he wants to bless us when we walk with him, right? And so I just think that it's been so helpful to hear this. And I think there's going to be folks that didn't even know where to start.
Yeah.
This process are going to want to now look at this, and they're going to seek out JTs and Susie's. Right? Because finding that right person and praying that God will lead you to that right realtor that has the right qualifications. I love that you explained what that realtor was. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know what that realtor meant when I saw that. I seen it on the little logo, but I never knew what it was. Yeah. So seeking out the people of the highest integrity that are held to a standard, right? I mean, that's what it's about. And so it's been so helpful. It really has. And I'm excited about it. Now, before we close, we typically pray out. So I want to pray for you. Right.
Thank you.
And for your real estate practice, right? And so I'll pray us out, but don't hang up yet, right?
Okay. All right. Good deal.
All right. So I want to pray us out of this portion. So Heavenly Father, we come to you today, God. I'm so thankful, Lord, for you putting JT in my life. Lord, I just never thought about clean back 15, 16, 17 years ago that we would meet and then that we'd be here today talking about this. And so God, I'm thankful, Lord, for his heart, for his family, for his loving you, Lord, and then operating his business with integrity because he knows that you hold us to that standard. And so God, he just wants to meet that standard. He wants to be pleasing to you. And so, Lord, I'm just thankful, Lord, for his real estate practice. And God, I ask you, Lord, that you would bless it, Lord, because of his integrity and because of his willingness to do the right thing. regardless, because it's the right thing. God, I just pray that you bless his business, bless his family, Lord, and use him to impact your kingdom for others and help others, Lord, be able to come into that place, Lord, where they can have their home, where they can raise their family, where they can worship you and be a part of the community. Lord, thank you for his work in the community. Lord, and we just pray that you have your hand upon him and his wife and his beautiful children, that you would protect them, Lord, and that you would bless them in ways, Lord, that only you can do. Lord, we love you and we just thank you, Lord, today for all you are. And we pray this in the name of your son, Jesus. Amen.
In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Thank you, Huff. No, thank
Man,
you.
I appreciate it so much, JT. You don't know what this has done for me today, man. It's